I'm alright. Well, I think today I'm going to start doing some massive refactoring of my message bus design. Right now, I create a topic for every event,
Hmm.
uh, and then I learned maybe last year that, and maybe it's based on the subscription tier, that I can't have like more than 100 Azure topics.
Hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that.
Well, I think I'm going to have, so, I mean, I haven't actually started writing code yet. I'm just trying to do a assessment because I have like 14, 15 microservices or different solutions, right? But I think I'm going to have like two or three topics, like two customer, two partner. Hence, a partner is a courier or a supplier.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe two for now. The third one will probably be two admin, but that's not important, not for a while. So two customer, two partner, and then the label will have my original topic names. No, that's not true. Yeah, the label will have like the historical event, such as no couriers found, arrived at pickup, arrived at drop off, etc. The topic names. Oh yeah, it would be like two customer underscore, and then maybe the last 6 to 8 digits of the request ID. And that's how you would uniquely identify uh, or map a order between customers and partners for easier readability or diagnose or debugging. What do you think?
Um, I still think it's not a great use of a service bus, but yeah, I mean, it's better than creating one per message, I suppose. Um,
Not a great use for message bus, as in like, okay, as in like okay. I think we had this conversation before, but I don't remember which you were proposing earlier. Just store it in the database and poll.
for messages, um, sort of. Um, I mean, you might structure it in the way that like a chat room is structured, which wouldn't use a well, it depends on what you're doing, but I don't think you should have like these. I mean, you can have direct messages between services over a queue, but direct messages between entities over a queue just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Um, I do think like and I've said this a bunch of times, like Orleans might be a really good option for this because of the way that it handles data and passing data like this back and forth, um, or Akka or any of those actor framework stuff where you've got two actors basically conversing with each other over a network or whatnot. Um, the big thing that you've done here is you're using the polling mechanism as the mechanism of receiving the data on the client side directly from the service bus, right? You didn't
Yes.
refactor that out, um, which means your service bus is exposed to the outside world, which isn't super great. But you'd have to refactor all that too to make it into like using SignalR or sockets or well, if you're doing native development, you probably have a lot more options. But yeah,
So I use SignalR, but SignalR is used for um, trading GPS location back and forth, right? It's relaying the GPS coordinates
yeah,
between the customer and the partner, right?
yeah. But isn't that
Um,
the same mechanism you need for pretty much all of these things, status updates and such?
the reason why I didn't go signal log for the entire thing is because there's a couple things. One, as an admin, I would like to have the option, especially early on, um, during the early stages of this quote unquote business, to receive different notifications, especially when new features get pushed. I want to be able to monitor, for a couple days that things are still working, right?
Hmm.
So whenever a customer, whenever a courier gets a gets a service bus message notification, as an admin, I'm like getting it too, right? And if things aren't happening, then maybe I could intervene. Like that was one thought process, which is kind of minor. The other one is I, as someone that wanted to, like we're talking 4 years ago, right?
Hmm.
As someone that wanted to make software or cloud architect hourly rate, I needed to have hands-on experience with the message bus.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that latter point.
Yes.
Um,
So it's
you
kind
know,
of like NASA. Like let's let's do something interesting and see what the future looks like in regards to our positioning and stuff like that. I know I just butchered that illustration, but like they do lab experiments and it becomes a force multiplier in regards to new technologies that they never considered,
yeah,
um, as well as new opportunities that open up. It's that aren't directly related to the experiment, but it's kind of like with me. It's like you open up new opportunities, you create new opportunities for relationships with other people based on the journey that you're on. So it was more than just system architecture. It was let me see how my life changes, 2, 3, 4 years down the road because of this journey that I'm taking.
yeah, yeah. No, that all makes sense from that perspective. Um, yeah, maybe it would take like a specific case and diagramming it out to see, what the best solution is. Like I said, it just like I've used service bus for like asynchronous back end communication, but never really front end back end communication, unless it's in like a enterprise setting where you've got the network kind of constrained and you've got your own bus anyways. But I mean, it could be used that way, I suppose. It's just like I said, it's just not something that I've seen the security like uh, the security story isn't great on that because I don't know how you can control like that client app from from getting access to more than just its 1 2 topics, but maybe you can.
Mm.
So, but yeah, I mean, refactor away. The, it's having what if you're having just 2 way channels, um, having that is better than multiple channels per instance. So
Yeah, because right now each order generates like 30 something topics.
yeah, geez, that's a lot. I mean, there might be. So I would say anything going from like I wouldn't be doing it from client to like 2 clients or 2 front end bits anywhere using direct message bus contact between them. But obviously it makes sense for certain stuff on the back end. Um, although if these are like order events or like actual um, like domain events, depending on the kind of event, you might be better with like an event hub because then you can like connect up uh, consumers after the fact.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I think you already have some other event store stuff in place for that. So I don't know. I'd have to get a better look at the actual like sequence to
Mm.
understand what's going on.
If you looked at my repost, you like, what the?
I think I've got access to like one of them, maybe.
Why did Scott do this that way?
Because you're
What?
learning.
Well, Courier Dispatch is probably the most complicated repo that I've written.
I've got access to your Beach Mobile partner one that you gave me.
Oh yeah, that
It
one's
was
significantly refactored.
oh yeah, carrier service,
Yeah.
courier delivery domain. Hmm, interesting. Had an interview, phone interview screening yesterday. Technical screening was pretty,
Oh, congrats.
yeah. But now I've got follow ups next week, like
Was it on
actual technical screenings. Like
was it on React?
no, this is another .NET View um, shop. So, but I like everything that they were saying because they were talking. The guy was talking about how they he's like, tell me like how you do work like in terms of like projects and stuff like that. And I was like, I guess I'm not. I was like, at first I didn't understand the question, but he's like, yeah, so we don't really like follow Scrum to a T or anything. Like we've been at companies where they do this and we don't really like that. And if you need that structure, it's like, oh no, this is perfect. I hate that stuff. I hate modern Scrum development. It's just it's annoying. There's so much waste in it. And he's like, we do something more akin to Kanban, but we, not necessarily directly, but kind of like that. And I'm like, perfect. That's great. That's much better.
Mm.
So, um, but the gist I got of it is that they actually care to try to improve the process, not follow the dogmatic, you know, the inflexible agile playbook. So, but it's a smaller shop. They've got like 15 developers, maybe
I'm gonna
50
say
people at the
I'm
company.
gonna say something that is that's gonna get me canceled. Are you ready?
You haven't been canceled yet. We'll find out if
Dude, I got
Gavin
like
ever
two
shows up.
strikes on YouTube. Um,
Oh, you did?
yeah.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
And like I didn't do anything nefarious. Like I know when I'm like doing something I shouldn't be doing, but no, like, I just get flagged and I never find out why.
Hmm.
All right.
You just say
Uh,
it's Sean. It's all Sean.
uh,
I got canceled because of Sean.
so I think this deserves a conversation, even though no one ever talks about it
Hmm.
because it's taboo. But I think that in the well, we're in a republic, but I think it's healthy to have discussions, right?
Yeah.
Am I the only person that acknowledged in majority shops that I'm in that it's it's rare for me to observe women's female software engineers, but it's common for me to observe uh, female agile coaches, and I'm not I'm not sure how that correlates. Like as a contractor, I don't really see female developers, but somehow there's like I would argue probably 50-50, and maybe and that's based on my personal experience that in regards to people that are in a position to tell other people how to uh, manage the software development effort in regards to processes, then like it's a balance between the two genders of like significant women that are in that role.
Would
Am I like way off?
yeah, well, not way off. No, um, I think that observation is right. Maybe the way that it's positioned is different. It's maybe you see more male developers, and there's actually more of a even distribution with agile coaches and stuff like that. But um, so it might be more that there's more males than there are females. I definitely have had I've worked with female developers in every shop that I've been in. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but
you're
what's the
right though.
ratio
It's
though?
yeah, the ratio is skewed, and that's just an observation, right? There is a skewed.
No, YouTube's going to ban me for saying that, for making that observation.
Well, yeah, but you're not saying like and good or anything like that, or like it's that's an observation. It's why is that? I think that I don't know. Maybe that there's and this isn't to say that females can't be engineers or anything like that. Don't get me wrong. But there's not a as much of a barrier at entry to get into like project management. So it's just more accessible to everyone.
And
You know.
everybody's going to consistently disagree with me. I don't think that to be a project manager or to be a agile coach that you you can completely bypass being an engineer first. Like I still don't think that, and a lot of people disagree with me, and that's fine. Like maybe soon I'll realize that what I believe was completely flawed. But like I think you have to be able to feel the pain of a soldier before you could be a general, right? And
Well, yeah,
maybe
but that's the thing is that relationship is the problem, not the that those are never meant to be. That was never meant to be the nature of those positions. They're never meant to be a general. That's how it get plays out. I
so
don't think
so
software engineering managers should have any coding experience. In fact, I'd rather they not.
I think they should.
I think that they should be an extension of HR, and they're literally there to just listen to be like, what do you need, and help. Let me help get that for you.
So I'm going to. This is a unfair and ridiculous example
Yeah,
that should immediately be casted out. Is casted a word? Can I say casted, or is it just
cast.
cast?
I think it's just
That
cast.
should be immediately
It's just
cast out.
he was cast out. Cast is a
Elon
past tense.
Musk was a software engineer. Do
Yeah,
you think that his background as an engineer contributed massively to how he manages projects
probably.
or runs tech businesses or tech startups?
Sure,
That's my example.
but that's yeah,
Someone provide me a counter example.
that's the top. That's like the top
That's a
echelon.
super unicorn, right?
Yeah, yeah, but the thing is you'd have to say that everybody up to the CEO would be engineer because the layers of middle management, whether they're software engineering management or project management or whatever, that all stuff it all stems from the top. So it's an extension of that body. It's not an extension of the team. So like I think that
I don't. I think okay.
so project management, for instance, is a discipline that isn't unique to software engineering at
It's
all.
not a discipline.
Engineering.
As a contractor, it's not a discipline. Project management, the majority of the shops that I work in, they they literally do stand up,
Yeah, hey,
and that's project management.
that's hold on, but there is so project management as a whole is an important function, and it's now how it gets applied in software might be bad, but in cases, but in general, there is like you look up the PMBOK, the actually I've got that somewhere over here, the project management book of knowledge and stuff like that. project management's a lot about is a lot about determining timelines and stuff like that, um, and and um, and coordinating dependencies and finding out and rooting out dependencies and putting them in place and figuring out what you can do in parallel and what you can't. It's very much a how do I optimize this process for delivery? Um, that necessary,
There's another
yeah,
factor that's really important that's not being done, and that's kind of what I was alluding to,
yeah,
is the the impediments that bubble up, or the blockers that are observed. Part of project management should be conducting analysis based on the severity of those blockers, asking the question, is this have we seen something similar to this before? If we have, then we can declare this a reoccurring pattern, and then to manage that reoccurring pattern so that it can be stamped out. That's not done. I have never been on the shop where like they actually conduct analysis on reoccurring patterns of unplanned work, and they come up with a strategy to remove that, for the future development effort for the remaining project. It's never happened.
yeah, yeah,
And
and I don't.
I'll raise a question. I'm like, oh, can we have a retro? I understand that you guys think that retrospectives are applicable to developers, but no, can we have retrospectives that are applicable to how we're managing the development effort that actually involves managers, right? And they, oh, that's a good idea, Scott. And nothing happens, right? So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very much about managing delivery, but it's I don't know that you know project managers even need to be in stand-ups. It would be they need inputs occasionally is what they need. Like like they don't need it from the stand-up either. They need it from like somebody on the team gives a status report saying here's what our estimates were, here's where we're at, here's our new estimate, and then they take that and they update their analysis, and they might have to shuffle different efforts around or push things or whatever based on because it's not just they're they shouldn't be managing just the software end of it. It should be the entire delivery of some sort of new feature, right? So it might be that they're also managing like the marketing effort and when the marketing effort goes live, and when do people start on that stuff, or when do they actually push it to out to the real world when we actually think we're going to deliver it. It might be like there might be a hardware aspect to it that you have to like connect up with the software. So,
right,
okay,
but
well, we've got 2 or 3 prototype machines that we're interfacing with here, but we need to actually ramp up and we need to buy all these machines. Plus, we need to get the power company in here to give more power to these spots, and then we need to build the unit the holding units for these machines that we're bringing in. There's a whole lot of different things that what they're trying to do is connect the entire delivery effort across teams, not just the software effort. Now,
yeah, I just think that the way it's currently being done is done
yeah,
wrong.
yeah, and I agree with you.
And obviously, I mean, I'm a critic because I'm not the one doing it,
Yeah,
but I mean, I have attempted to do it. It's just when it comes to politics and other people trying their best to be relevant to the business, then human incentives tend to override doing the most effective or efficient thing,
yeah,
right?
yeah, um, and yeah. So I don't disagree with you that it's being done wrong. Um, in a lot of cases, there's no reason. There's very little reason to have like software delivery project managed that is just purely software, unless it's a large cross team effort potentially that has
I,
multiple factors to it
I
that need
think
to.
there's a lot of value in being an engineer
Yeah,
as a prerequisite to managing development efforts. I really do.
but yeah,
I mean, I'm not. It's like no disrespect, but I'm really surprised that the majority of people believe no, you don't have to be an engineer to manage an engineering effort. Not at all. Uh, that boggles
yeah,
my mind.
and so okay, and I'll agree with you on that. But here's the thing: is that I'm saying that these roles aren't about managing the project or the delivery effort or like the software effort. it's about project management is about a totally different thing. It like all they really need from the only inputs they need from a software team is what are your estimates for this? What dependencies there are, where are you at, status type stuff, because that's what they're trying to coordinate multiple different efforts that need to happen in sequence. Um, so take Scrum Masters for instance.
There's a
That's
huge
another
part that's
set.
missing though, Sean. I didn't mean to cut you off,
Yeah,
but would you agree that the majority of projects in general, regardless of it being software projects, they they tend to surpass budget and time constraints, right? The initial time constraints.
Well,
You
yeah,
would agree, right?
estimates are tough, which is why there's a whole um,
They're they are tough because the vast majority, which is probably a double, it's not a double. What do you call when you
yeah,
like? What's the term that I said the vast majority, which you don't have to say vast majority because you could just say majority, right? What do you call that? What's the name of when someone does that?
redundancy or
Yeah,
what?
maybe redundancy. For some reason, like I want to relate it to like a. It's similar to a double, like a double negation, but it's not negation. It's okay. We'll just say
Yeah,
redundant.
I don't know. I mean,
Like
I
people
guess
say,
vast
you
majority is
over exaggerated. I'm like, how do you over exaggerate? Isn't it exaggerating? Like, anyways,
yeah.
uh,
Maybe the words you're looking for is like oh God, what is the word? Oh, hyper
it,
something.
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah,
The what like what you stated about what project management involves, you stated with the like what the direct focus is on that most of us um, that would be inexperienced would just say, yeah, that makes sense, right? But for people that are experienced at engineering, I believe that managing a engineering effort, you need to focus on. I think you need to focus more on unplanned work that seeps inside of the system of work, right? Things that were never scheduled as part of the development effort that you have to deal with. And then again, the reoccurring patterns of of unplanned work, that's the biggest reason I believe that projects fail. It's the thousand paper cuts, right? It's this occurrence and then another occurrence and then all of a sudden you have all these occurrences that you never planned for. Most of the time, how could you that occur? Some of
hmm
it is just like, you learned more about what needs to be built. So there were some missing requirements and that's fair. All right, but other times it's like things happen, like whether I'm gonna butcher this, a change in security mandates or deprecation of libraries or frameworks midway through development, or yeah, anything that's volatile.
yeah.
So
And if you didn't have those volatilities, you wouldn't need project management probably
my
because it would just
argument
get
is
done immediately.
my argument is the majority of
Yeah,
project managers don't focus on the volatility. They focus on exactly what you said. These are the tasks that need to be done that are direct ingredients, right? That's blatantly obvious of what we need to do in order to deliver the solution. What they don't focus on is what as soon as there's a sneak peek of unplanned work, like okay, is this just a one-off, or is this something likely to affect developers again, right? Oh, 2 weeks later, man, this is very similar to what we saw earlier. What I don't see is them focusing on a strategy to make sure that stops happening.
yeah,
I
and
don't
that's
see
that's
it.
not what the point of their job is. Project
If
managers.
you're managing the development, okay, is a project manager managing the
Yeah,
development effort?
yeah, you shouldn't. But that's the thing is they shouldn't be. That's not the development effort that they're managing. They're managing the project.
They're managing the delivery of a solution, right?
Yeah, a broad delivery of a
Well,
solution. There's
my
no need for a project manager on a single team. Period. Because you could just have direct, how's it going, up to the thing. If the only thing that you're trying to deliver is the software effort for one team, then you have no need for a project manager. It's pointless.
I think I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but the I don't think I've ever said one team.
Yeah.
You have cross
So you got
interdependencies
multiple teams.
between
Yeah.
you have
And
cross
you got
dependencies between
interdependencies. Yep.
teams. My argument is one of the core responsibilities of a project manager is to stop reoccurring patterns of unplanned work. Period.
Yeah. I don't. I
And
don't. I
it
don't think
doesn't get
that's the
done.
case. That's the actual engineering team's job to do.
How? If they don't, it, what individual engineering team has the authority to mitigate that risk when there's dependencies on other teams?
Okay. So can we give a concrete example? Because I'm having a hard time understanding what you're saying here in terms of
Okay, sure.
how what a project manager should do.
I'm gonna butcher an example, and this is gonna be really really poor. Uh, so you have yeah, here we go. So you have a DevOps team,
Hmm.
which to me, maybe I need help because I feel like, how do you have a dedicated team of DevOps? Should they not be integrated?
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion, and we agree on it.
Okay.
There's a platform team. That's a little different, but yeah.
So you have a DevOps team, and then you have a, a set of development
Hmm.
teams, plural. And in order for a their work to be completed, or the feature that they're working on to be completed, it has to be observed in production. Let's say
Hmm.
that's the scenario. Okay. Well, the DevOps team, they're not really DevOps. They're just
Ops.
engineers that have security permissions to deploy,
Yeah.
right? But I mean, they're not really continuously integrating and continuously like
Okay.
deploying whatever. Make a long story short, there there may be there's times where the the CI pipeline or whatever that thing's called, it keeps breaking. And so that's unplanned work. Why did it break? And I mean, in order to fix it, they find out why. But then, you know, a week later, it breaks again for a different team, right? That's kind of like one example. And so developers are sitting on their hands because they have dependencies on the work that they already got done, but they also need to monitor it, or they need to deploy it and make sure everything checks out.
Hmm.
And that's the best example I could come up with that you gave me within a short amount of time. And I know that might be like a D listed example, but that's something that
Yeah.
I've ran into
So,
where things break and you have dependencies on another team to resolve it, and then it breaks again, and you're relying on the other team to resolve it, and
yeah,
then it breaks again. And to me, someone that manages the development effort should say, okay, this has happened before. Why is this happening? Versus just addressing it every single time and forgetting that it's a reoccurring pattern.
yeah, and I agree with you. The way that you stated that, but it's the way you said it. If you're managing the development effort, project managers aren't supposed to manage the development effort. They're supposed to manage projects. It's a little different. So, project in this case, what should happen if you're a project manager is you observe that there are these repeated things, and then you talk to the technical leadership and say, hey, look, you've got a problem here, and this is going to affect our timelines. then the technical leadership should go, okay, well, we need to devote resources or people to fix this, um, in order to make our timelines, or relay back, yes, this is a problem because of X, we can't fix it because of Y, and so we're going to need to adjust our timelines for that problem. But the project manager isn't meant to do that. So if you're in a place where the project manager is managing the actual technical delivery, it's the wrong setup.
I'm confusing. Literally, when I hear a project manager, to me, it's a manager that, or it's a person that manages projects.
Yeah,
If
projects.
to me, and maybe you'll correct me on this one, like a football coach manages his team for a specific game. Well, I mean, it's not a specific game, but they're managing a game specifically to their players so that it succeeds. Is a project manager invested in the success of their development team so that the project succeeds? If the answer is yes, I would think that a project manager has more responsibility than just relaying status to leadership. I would think that a project who, who has the responsibility or the authority to say we keep getting unplanned work, we know exactly what the scope of the unplanned work that keeps reoccurring, let's snap it out so that it stops happening. If it's not the project manager, who is it?
Director of software engineering,
Okay.
a director versus a project manager. And see,
Or
in your like in your example, like, and it might not even be that. It might be a lead. It might be something with some sort of leadership within the technical structure itself. But project management isn't that. There are project managers in all sorts of engineering and construction and stuff. It's not unique to software. None of them in those things go out and say, well, that rebar that you bought isn't like is failing or something. I need to figure out how to make that rebar not fail again. No, they talk to the foreman or the engineers, and they say, hey, go fix this because it's affecting our timelines. And somebody within that organization will handle it. Um,
okay.
because project managers aren't meant to do that. It's more of the software engineering
I
leadership
don't
that does
I
that.
I understand what you're saying. What you're saying makes sense. I just don't believe that reoccurring patterns of things breaking is a engineering problem. I think it's a
It's an
people problem.
organization problem.
It's a people problem.
Yeah, and it so in the example there, it's why is it set up this way, and if it's people breaking, it could be the way that the organization sits around the architecture, and a lot of that's dependent on how were the teams created and who created them and who decided they needed, you know how did they plan the teams. A lot of that's software engineering management. It's not the it's not project management. Um, but yeah, we could talk about too how Scrum Masters, like, that's a kind of a bloated position. Like, their whole job is supposed to be like servants to the team, like, but they do manage the team, try to manage things or whatever, and that's a bit annoying. And like I said, software engineering managers, you know, I like they can handle and in this case, a software engineering manager probably should be the one to say, okay, DevOps team, you go fix this. They don't describe how to fix it. They're not involved in fixing it, but they might say, here, this is your priority. And this is
Uh,
becoming, that's because the actual like apparatus above the actual business apparatus needs this in this time frame.
Sean, would you ever consider being an alternate for OD on my tech conception?
An alternate. Yeah.
OD,
What happened to finding an Asian female or something like that? Where'd you?
I'm 0 for 3.
I,
Odie, he gets busy, and I think it's way easier for him to find a reason to say he's not available to consistently, like we try to do it every weekend. Well, like we didn't do it last weekend because he had Prime Day with Amazon,
oh.
so he was pretty stressed out trying to make sure that based on his obligations for that project or
Hmm.
that event. But yeah, I like to have redundancy. We
Yeah.
we hit
I mean,
300 subscribers. So now we're getting like a couple subscribers a day now.
Yeah, I mean, if you ever need someone to fill in, um, if it's if it's last minute, depends on what I've got going on. But
Yeah,
if you just like, I know I need to be consistent with this, and I have nobody, yeah, feel free to reach out anytime.
appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah, I don't. I'll try to, I don't know, make my desk cleaner or something. So, uh,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, no, I have no problem with that.
I reached out to like two, three females and like, who are you? What do you want? Like that's kind of the vibe that I got. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you could keep hunting. I don't know,
I'll just get a transgender or something.
or you could just be like, no, you could just put at the end of your thing, like if you'd like to be on Topics Conception, email us at,
Oh, okay, that's a thought.
I don't know, like, and say we're looking especially for underrepresented views or something like that. I mean, you might get a lot of random, like, people you don't want, but still, or you might find some stuff. I mean, that's an idea.
Yeah,
So, do you guys own the techconception.com?
no. If it, if and when we could hang in there and we get like, in the event that we may get like 50,000 subscribers, which maybe if we're consistent, maybe that'll happen in like 3 or 4 years. I would like to have a tech conception consulting firm.
There you go.
I would like to expand it from a YouTube channel to more opportunities.
There you go. Put all your. I mean, you could always start that and put it under your name.
Yeah. Odie's a bright person, but man, I've been trying to get him on my team to actually do consulting for a while, and it's impossible.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot
Mm.
of risk.
Well, really,
These.
really smart people, they tend to have their own ideas of what they want to do. It's annoying. So,
Yeah. Have you ever do you run into that in projects and stuff at work? I've run into it too, where you get, and I've started to back off, I think, on this, but like when you get two strong ideaed people on the same team, it's kind of a mess. Like you kind of need like one person who's the strong idea, um, opinionated person, and then you need a bunch of people that are just willing to go with the vision that person has. But if you have two, then
are
it
you
becomes
saying
like,
when they're peers and one doesn't have a higher rank than the other?
no, 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 just it's more about like, uh and I don't want to use opinionated because it sounds like you're being like intentionally being like dogmatic, but the idea is you have two people with vision on the same team for the same product, and they see two different visions, and they try to implement the vision, and what happens is you just get annoyed with each other,
Yeah, it happens
even though
with
you
me all
like
the
each other.
time. It
you
happens
know
with me all the time. I remember one argument. It wasn't an argument, but like there was friction where one is if you have an option to get out, leave anytime a shop wants to have two leaders on the same project.
yeah, yeah,
Meaning
for sure.
they want to have two architects on the same project. Leave. I've had three architects on the same project. And I'm not talking about like different job title architects like domain architect, solutions architect, and whatever else architect. No, I'm talking about like mobile architect on the same project, right? It's like management has no clue about the human factor of a project, right?
Yeah,
To answer your question, the answer is yes. One specific example was like with me, I try to be very conscientious about volatility of projects and if you're hiring me as an architect, then it's in the business's best interest to not have to alter the architecture 12 months, 36 months, 5 years from now, right? And so I remember the disconnect that I had with the other architect on the same project was I'm like, we need to separate we need to isolate our view models into their own project or projects, depending on if you're doing like domain driven design or if you literally just want to throw a whole bunch of unrelated view models in one project, like whatever. I wouldn't do that. But we need to separate, we need to decouple view models from presentation so that they're not in the same project because as libraries or frameworks get deprecated, um, in theory, we just want to swap out the presentation. Xamarin Forms and .NET MAUI is a prime example of this, right? And I've had the other architects like, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. They should be in the same project. If you look at any of the tutorials, this is how it's done. I'm like, well, those tutorials usually have disclaimers saying that this is not production, right? Silence,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So, anyways, I've had disconnects with people that they're tactical, but it hasn't been demonstrated that they're strategic, and they will fight me tooth and nail for mainstream practices that are based on tutorials and not based on like longevity of production grade systems.
yeah. I mean, the compromise in that sense would be to just put them into a folder, rather than a project. Now that there are obviously drawbacks to that, um, but at least you have some level of segregation where you could split it off into its own
You put
project.
into a folder, you're still going to have accidental coupling.
Yeah, yeah, that's the trade off. But then again, you know, how and I've thought this, like, how often do we actually take code and move it, change the like a platform underneath it? It's
It's as
it's like
often as a framework or a library gets deprecated and it no longer has production or it no longer has support for Microsoft.
and but at the same time, it's like how like what's the likelihood that somebody would actually like that the delivery that you have doesn't want to be changed at the same time? Like, you know what I mean? It's like we code so much for the idea that we're going to be able to swap in new components later, and almost like 80-90% of the time that never happens. It's like,
Based on what timeline? How long does a platform live? How old is YouTube? YouTube is approximately, I would argue, 20 years old.
but
Did
they
they
don't.
plan on YouTube? Did the founders plan on YouTube living for more than 20
No, no, no,
years?
no, no, no. So YouTube's a product, and a product can live for a long time, but this
Okay.
underlying software is going to change over time, and you might use completely different, things. Like you could take like Windows Forms, for example. You might have a Windows Forms application product that you've put a lot of time and effort into, and you wrote a lot of code for. What's the likelihood that all the separation that you did in that thing, you're like, okay, now we're going to take this and we're going to actually adapt it to be WPF or something else?
It
Meh.
happens. It happens often though, and that's my argument.
But you're going to
It
rewrite it though.
No, you're going to rewrite the presentation. That
Yeah,
doesn't mean
I'm
that
saying
doesn't
that
mean
never happens, like ever. Like
it never
nobody change.
happens.
Rarely do people swap out databases or change like a presentation layer on
They're
top of
doing it
stuff.
right now. There's if you
Yeah,
look for .NET MAUI, there's a number of projects that need to get off of Xamarin Forms and get on MAUI because Xamarin Forms is no longer supported in regards to production support.
yeah. And how many of those are doing a like a direct port? And how much did the patterns like cross over? Um,
So is your argument even though we know that technologies get deprecated, it's fine. Don't don't program such that those frameworks or libraries are volatile. Like, who's paying for this? Do you care who's paying for it?
Yeah.
If as an architect, you're responsible for the maintainability of a solution, is that how you would is that how you would interview? Saying like, we'll just do a complete rewrite, in 5 years or 8 years, even though it took 3 years to build and stabilize.
Well, building and stabilizing, that's not the if it's never the technology part of it. It's always the knowledge gathering part of it. Um, and then, but what I'm saying is like I, from what I've seen, it's the majority of time people rarely are going to actually just say, hey, we want to swap in just the presentation layer. We just need you to upgrade just the platform bit.
It's
It
I don't
it's
think it is rare. You've had viable solutions written in Silverlight. You've had viable solutions written in WPF.
hmm
The business policies are the business policies are the business policies. They don't change. They can evolve, but they don't change. But the front end technologies of what gets deprecated, like if you're an enterprise organization and the vendor drops support for one of their legacy frameworks or libraries, like, do you really have a choice?
no,
Especially
well,
when
I
you
understand if you need to change out, you need to be forced into new technology. I'm saying that rarely the choice is to just take out that one little tiny spot and just like just the view part, not the view models, and just be like, we're gonna just replace this layer. Like that rarely happens. What happens is that this thing goes for a good long time as it is, and there's a bunch of things people hate about it, or they like about it, but they hate like some things, or they're like, oh, we wish we would have done this better the first time, but we didn't. We don't have the ability to do that right now. So then a new technical problem comes along like this. Okay, we have to replace everything within this layer. Maybe this layer would be fine, but we have to replace everything in this layer. And they'll go, okay, well, if we're going to replace that whole thing, and it's going to take this long, we might as well just rework a bunch of stuff that we wanted to be reworked, which invalidates all of like the stack anyways. Because you're going to have to release the whole thing all at once, usually, depending on what it is. If it's a web project, you have more options for strangler type patterns, I think, than if you're doing like a native app. But um, and then it just becomes like a replacement effort anyways. I I think that we rarely actually reuse like the core of a code base and just swap out the edges. I
That's
just
because
yeah.
rarely are they architected to allow it.
Yeah, but it even if they are, I don't know that it happens very often. It does happen, but
It doesn't happen very
yeah.
often because they don't architect for that. That's my
Yeah.
argument.
Yeah, and so it's but even if they are, it's there's usually a bunch of other like things that come along with it. That's not just, hey, we need to swap out the platform. It's, hey, we need to swap out the platform and we want to fix these things. Um, it's
Right,
there are
right. But
occasional
if
replatforming efforts that do this, but they're not, you know,
I understand that, but what the concept that you're describing, is that not still better fitted for a staged effort? Meaning, if your platform is making money, your platform is a flagship product,
hmm
right? You still don't want to disrupt the revenue that's coming in. So would you not want to exercise the option of swapping out the presentation and keeping everything stable? If you don't have to tweak anything on the back end, like that increases confidence that there's not going to be disruption, or it
yeah,
lowers the risk of disruption. And then if you want to make enhancements to the business policies, you still can. But would it not be a better approach to stage that effort than to do a big bang presentation rewrite and business policy enhancements?
yeah. But what's the likely? Yeah, and I understand that. Like, if you can swiftly swap out a layer and say, look, we're upgrading from, and maybe Xamarin and Maui are so similar that it's like, yeah, this is not a really big effort. It's just swap out the layer. There's a couple of gotchas that we have to be watch out for. Everything otherwise works the exact same fine. But I think what would happen in a lot of cases is, well, we've got to replace this. Everything new is totally different, so we have to change it all anyways. It's like,
That defeats the
yeah,
purpose. If the example that we're talking about is data binding, or takes into consideration data binding, in which is the whole point of it is to decouple presentation from business logic. It's literally designed so that you can replace presentation
yeah,
and
I know
preserve
that.
everything else.
I know that. Technically, you could do that with a lot of things. I'm saying that it's that it doesn't, like, people are like, it doesn't happen that often, and we put a lot of work into designing for it that probably doesn't need to be there. And
Yeah.
maybe it's more on the dependency side, about abstracting away dependencies. Like, how often do you actually change your database? Like,
Unless it's done
uh,
wrong. So, for example, when I say done wrong,
yeah.
I had a I had a session with a tech founder, I think like last Tuesday,
Hmm.
and they were saying that, make a long story short, one of their lead developer, um, attempted to implement an event store using SQL Server. Okay,
Okay.
and what happened was it significantly slowed down the performance of their flagship product, because when you're recording events, your tables just start expanding like crazy.
Yeah.
And so they had to swap out uh, uh, a piece of their database for it to be NoSQL, where it was originally done in SQL, but it didn't scale. So that's an example.
Yeah.
It's probably a
Well,
poor
SQL
example.
SQL will scale with that stuff. You can get millions and millions and millions and billions of records in a table, and SQL will still perform. But you might need to scale it up or scale it out in a way, um, and a lot, it depends on how they like index things, and what strategy they use for projections and all that kind of stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily assume that it's always that way, but um,
Well, it affected their business
yeah,
because of the way that things were done, and they had to change a piece. They had to change a certain way of how they save certain data.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, and if it's a simple thing like that where you're just tacking on new copies of the same thing or whatever, or no, you're saving commands in that case, right? Events. So not events, commands, mutations.
No, you're saving historical events with context and hopefully versions of the structures that
Yeah,
represent that context.
yeah. Hmm. Anyhow, I've got this technical interview next week, and it's the first time I've ever had to do a live coding one. So we'll see how this goes. I have to dust the cobwebs off, though. I don't
In,
think I've coded anything in a month.
in JavaScript or C Sharp.
Both. Well, it sounds like there might be like a .NET portion first, and then it's like a combo .NET Vue part next. So
So are you going to bother doing katas, or are you just going to say, oh, I got like 15 years, like I'm
no, I
good.
gotta. Yeah, I've gotta just refresh my memory on basically just jumpstart the muscle memory on this stuff. So Monday, I'll take time and build a little project or something to make sure that I'm solid.
I would I would just practice memorizing aggregates. I can never, for the life of me, remember the syntax for an aggregate in link.
Oh, it's the Well, I always get it confused because reduce in JavaScript, the seed is backwards from it. So I can't remember if I think the seed comes first in .NET, right? Um,
Yeah, so
or
in
does it
C,
come second? I can't remember.
I don't know JavaScript,
No,
but
no, no.
like
In .NET, in the aggregate call, the seed comes first or
the,
second.
the tutorials, you
Yeah,
have your
it's not
in the
hard though.
tutorials
That's the only.
in the lambda of your
Yeah,
tutorials, you have the current item, and then you have the accumulator.
yeah. Well,
Right,
it's the accumulator then the
those are the
current
two
item.
arguments,
Yeah,
and then like you have your seed
yeah.
as another argument, and then you have your data, your
Well, no,
collection
it's
as
just a lambda of it's just a lambda saying that takes an accumulator and the current one, and then says that returns
and it takes a seed,
the accumulator,
and it
and
takes a
then
seed.
it takes an optional seed. Otherwise, it'll use the default value.
I can never remember that syntax for the life of me. Each time it takes me like 5 minutes to figure out how to write aggregate.
Yeah,
But I
no, it's
mean, so map filter reduce in C sharp is select, where, and aggregate.
yeah, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. I can never remember if the seed comes first or second, but I think in dot actually it probably comes second.
And
I
what
don't know.
else? I think everything, to me, almost all the coding exercises, for me, almost always rely on like a dictionary or a hash table or something like that. And I don't use hashes that often,
Hash
but
sets.
hash sets.
Well, hash set's just for like knowing if something exists, right? Like, oh, this is
Well,
part of the set.
it's a dictionary that doesn't throw an exception if you have a duplicate, right?
No, no, it won't. Doesn't accept duplicates. It just
But it won't throw an exception. That's the
yeah,
difference.
because you're just setting, you're just adding. It's like a list that has only one of any particular item in it.
Uh,
Um,
you know what gets me in trouble because it's kind of like involuntary. Like I just start bashing it. Is when I get questions about design patterns,
well, I
and
mean, design
I
patterns are
start
good.
going in on why the f would you want to do that? Like design patterns are nothing but band-aid for a poor decision of tightly coupling data with behavior, right? And like why I don't think anybody should be proud that they use design patterns. That is a failure.
Well,
Sorry.
I don't. The thing is I don't think. Well, you might consciously use a design pattern, but like once you learn them, they just kind of fit into your. They put you just roll them into your design. You don't really think about it. But design patterns are great though because it gives you a vocabulary to discuss the structure of your code. This is and to name certain things like this is an adapter. Like we know what that is because there's an adapter pattern
Yeah, if you wrote your
and we know
code
what it
wrong.
does. What?
If you
No,
wrote your
like
code wrong.
well, adapters are very useful though. Like they're
Uh,
used often.
you say adapter, I say mapping,
Yeah,
right?
that's what an adapter is. It maps from one interface to another.
Or converter. But
Yeah, it's an
remember,
adapter.
I'm cool. I do FP, so everything is function, function, function.
Yeah, well, yeah, there. I mean, adapter functions for sure, but
Anyway, yeah, I mean to your point, like I always get kind of like nervous when I know I'm going to be like doing live coding.
live. Yeah,
But I mean, I write code like I think the longest I've gone without writing code is probably like 3 months. But I don't really forget that much except for aggregate. So
yeah. I think it's just the fumbling around with the muscle memory. Like if you've been coding for a while and you're doing a lot of it, you get into a rhythm, and then when you like leave it for a while and you come back, you're like, oh yeah, I've got to. This is how my fingers have to move in order to do these things that I'd like. But then it's like riding a bike, right? It comes back. It might be feel a little foreign, but it just
you know
comes
what I
right
hated?
back.
I hated there's this one company. I don't even think they were really hiring. I think that they were just trying to get their product tested through the disguise of an interview where they'll have you do a coding exercise. And I'm like, oh, okay. Oh, let me pull up Visual Studio and share my screen. Um, you can't use Visual Studio. You have to use this web browser with this URL. I'm like,
Hmm.
why? Why don't you do you want me to solve the coding problem, or are you why do you want me to use this product so bad? Like, and I've learned, like, you know what? You do want me to use this product more than you want me to solve the problem. I'm good. I'm not interested in this interview. Like,
Yeah,
I'll
was it
literally just cut
hacker?
it
Was
like
it
that.
like hacker rank or something like that? Because there are things that they want to have like I don't understand why you can do the actual solution in Visual Studio and then just copy the code in, right? But
I don't know, but this person was adamant that I couldn't use my preferred IDE, and I'm like, are you interviewing me for my skill set, or do you really are you invested in this product that
mhm.
sucks? It doesn't have IntelliSense, and I'm sorry. I like being productive. I don't go out my way to memorize every single syntax that I write. Like,
Yeah,
it's retarded.
yeah. The one good thing about this company that I'm interviewing with, the guy said specifically, he's like, listen, we know people are gonna Google crap when they're on the job. You can just Google whatever you want. We don't really care. It's gonna be we just want to watch you work on something. It's like, okay. So I don't know, but I've never actually been in this, and I don't know. Maybe there will be some performance anxiety or something.
As
But
long as they don't tell you to write code for a B plus tree or a radix sort, you should be good.
I could do that if it's like, I don't know, like a complex algorithm, like an A-star algorithm. Doing that on a whim is would be kind of tough. Um, Most of those sorting algorithms are not too bad if you look into them. B trees aren't that complex either. Um,
Okay, write a B tree from scratch based on which you remember the concept of what you remember the concept of a B tree is.
it's a binary tree. It's just two options on each node, and that points to another node that has two options. And it's recursive, right? That's what a binary tree is, left or right. Now, to do a binary search on that
You
tree
remember what B plus trees are primarily used for?
for searching, like
Yeah,
yeah, because you could do a
for
depth first or
databases.
yeah. I don't yeah. I It's been a while since I've cracked a data structures and algorithms book, but yeah.
Having to do LNR. I got PTSD from data structures and algorithms course. It was
You know what
so
the
high
funny
pressure, man.
Yeah, what they don't really tell you about that is it's not really about learning those specific data structures and algorithms. The entire point of data structures and algorithms is to teach you that there are trade-offs between things. Like with sorting algorithms
Oh, you
specifically.
mean Big
Yeah,
O?
you have to implement sorting algorithms, different sorting algorithms, sure. But the idea is that you can sort to sort something is the exact same, like regardless of how you do it, it's the same operation, has the same result. It's a function. But there are trade-offs to each implementation of it. This one is a lot faster with small subsets. This one's a lot faster with large subsets. This one's a lot uses more memory. This one uses more CPU. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish with your stuff, with your code, you may choose one thing over the other to accomplish the same task. And that's the entire point of data structures and algorithms, is to teach you that there are trade-offs with data structures and algorithms. That's it. That's like in a nutshell. It's like, oh, okay. But you got to go through that the nobody ever tells you that. You just have to go through the process to learn it. Like, oh yeah, there's different structures and things, and I don't know.
You know
But it
my
is good to also have a baseline understanding of those things regardless. So
you know what my new job title is?
um let me guess. Principal
Okay,
Xamarin
I
dot net.
told you.
Yeah.
Principal F sharp engineer.
No, I've looked at people like who've gotten
I
principal roles with
I
like
don't
a
think I'm a
lot less.
principal.
Yeah, I'm like,
Principal is Tomas Petrocek.
I need to be
Like
a
I don't think I'm on
20-year
his level
veteran
at
before I'm
all.
at a principal. Yeah, yeah. No, uh, I've seen like principal engineers that are like, and lead engineers. I'm starting to finally get into that part where everybody I'm working with who's hiring me or whatever actually has less or is my manager is less experienced than me. And it's a weird feeling like, oh, am I not progressing here fast? Like, should I be doing something different?
The person that interviewed me for my upcoming role had a PhD in physics.
Oh, neat.
I was so intimidated.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, God, please don't look too dumb in front of this person. I did okay.
Oh, good. So you're writing like you're not writing UI work then? Are
Nah,
you doing server side stuff or are you doing
I'm
like
I'm writing
without
I'm
having to get into
writing and maintaining automated tests in F sharp,
Oh, okay.
which is like right up my alley. I have a fetish for automated testing and as well as F sharp. Remember when I think last Friday I was trying to memorize how to write a basic property based test,
Hmm.
and it took a while for me to get the namespaces right and stuff like
Yeah, I
that.
just had to look up your old
Uh,
thing to find it. Yep. Hmm.
so this should be interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Otherwise, if this one doesn't pan out because I suck at these things, I don't have anything in the pipeline yet. Otherwise, so I've had a few recruiters reach out last week that I haven't, or this week that I haven't responded to yet. But I don't know.
The market is still bad. If we're not in a recession, I don't know what you call it.
Well, we're in a correction for software, that's for sure. But I don't know that again. I don't know that it was. Well, maybe there is a lot of software in there too.
I'm getting a
Um,
lot of people reaching out to me like, Scott, dude, like I can't even get an interview. And I'm like, I got 20 years in this game, and I literally just got my first two interviews like within the same week. I
yeah,
couldn't get an interview. Like if I get an interview, like it's 90% chance I'll get an offer. Like 90%. Like I couldn't get an interview.
yeah. Well, you gotta maybe look at different ways to get at it rather than going through recruiters, I suppose. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a different market than it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, where it was like, hey, do you have a breath? All right, you're hired. Like, here you go.
Yeah, but I would think that it still boggles my mind that there's a whole bunch of jobs that are out there. Like if you go on like LinkedIn jobs or
Yeah,
Indeed or Career Builder, like there's so many jobs out there, but people can't get an interview invitation.
yeah, and part of that might be if like I've look at the easy apply ones on LinkedIn. That'll tell you how many applicants there are.
Yeah.
It's like 140 applicants. It's like, whoa, okay.
So that's another thing. Like you gotta tell me when you're ready to go, because I could keep talking, right?
Yeah,
Because
after this, I'm just gonna go for a run, and then I gotta get ready for camping. So,
you gotta run backwards.
mm.
So
Oh no, I'm actually running with my. I've got. I'm gonna try my second run with these zero shoes that I have, which are zero drop shoes. They're minimalist barefoot shoes, minimalist
okay.
shoes, what they're called. So there's no padding. Basically, you're running on your like your barefoot, other than the protection that they give. So, anyways, keep going.
Is it is it more challenging to be a web developer looking for a job than it is to be kind of a niche developer like myself, meaning Xamarin, F Sharp?
Mm,
Even I couldn't even get a job with Azure. Like,
yeah.
so I could only imagine the number of applicants for a web development job.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of. I mean, there's a lot of jobs for web, but there's a lot of applicants for web too.
Yeah, and I
It's
would
definitely around those fringes where like this. It's like if I wanted to become an IoT developer, how do I do that without becoming an IoT developer?
get a cert.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
I mean, that's what I
Um,
did for WPF. I had to get a certificate. I had to take my certification in order for me to start getting invited to interviews
yeah, yeah,
and to
and
make an
maybe that's what
hourly
it
rate.
is you've got to do that kind of stuff because it's like if I go outside of the full stack web development frame or because I can do back end or I wouldn't probably qualify for most front end jobs, although I could do it alone. But as a full stack or back end developer, I can kind of make it. But it's just like you're kind of stuck in whatever stack you kind of went in. Even though my first stuff was in C, and I did a little Python for a while even, but I don't know C++ too. But it's like that. I don't know. But is it hard to find one? Maybe. I think it's easier to go through recruiters at this point than it is to go through
Uh,
than to go through because I've had I
yep.
have like 2 or 3 recruiters reach out where I know I could get an interview with because that's what they do.
Because there's so many web developers out there, have you observed like a reduced hourly rate or a salary, or has it been consistent for the past 3, 4 years?
No, it's been this. I mean, so there was a huge upwards burst in during the last like 2 years, right? Jobs went from like just reaching that $100,000 mark for kind of like a entry software to being more like 120 for entry software or whatever senior. So there's been an uptick um, in the last few years because of inflation and all that. But um, I don't know that jobs are all over the place for like you go on you have senior software and principal software engineer $70,000 and the next one will be $230,000. It's like okay, well there's a huge range here. It depends on where the
Yeah.
company
Well,
is, like how much resources they have,
I
what their total
still
comp package looks like, what
that
industry they're in.
that H1B or whatever you call that thing, like I really wish that they would put tighter constraints around that. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, well maybe they will. I don't know, but then
shouldn't
then
have to
again,
compete with an entire country inside the United States in order to pay my taxes for the past year.
yeah, but
Shouldn't.
companies don't care that they're like they're not limited to the United States
The
anyways. They'll just
government
open an
should
office
care.
in another country. So,
The
but
Fed should
yeah,
care. So
but they pay taxes too. So when they're here,
yeah, but don't they have to? With I thought the policy was you have like 60 days or 90 days to find employment if you're on that visa.
yeah,
And so, what are the odds you are going to take
and you
a
need sponsorship.
significant that you are going to take a significant pay cut, right? So, my thought process is they're going to probably be get paid 2/3 of what uh, a U.S. citizen would take, and they would be. I don't know how many H-1B, how many of those visas are issued, or how many of those
Well, you
people
need
with those visas.
sponsorship, and there's a whole. But companies that have done it though, they know that what happens is as soon as they're over with their sponsorship period, where they can get a different job, they'll cut and run. That's what they do because they only accept those kind of lower positions to get the foot in the door. And so a lot of companies don't sponsor for that very reason. Um,
Okay,
yeah,
but other companies like your Microsofts, for a
some companies
fact,
do. Yeah,
like that's their preference. I think.
yeah, but
I've
then
been at
Microsoft will keep
companies.
them though because they're willing to pay them,
I've been at
what they're
companies where
worth.
they've had entire floors of people from overseas, like
Yeah,
entire floors of
good.
a corporate office. It's not good. I'm not trying to compete with another country to pay my
Don't compete with
taxes.
them. Compete on the fact that you're just the best for the job.
How
I
do I
mean,
convince HR? Okay. How do
Yeah.
I don't know how to convince HR, someone that's not technical, but they're the gatekeeper for a position. Like that's
Yeah.
very
Don't go through
challenging.
HR then. Go through a recruiter.
Okay, because recruiters understand how many years of
No, they have like
no no
they
no no
have
here
like
they're
yeah
like how many years of .NET do you have? And I'm like 20. Oh great. How many years of C Sharp do you have? 20. Like I get asked that question
yeah. Well,
so
that makes
often.
sense.
So
But well, you could have been writing VB the whole time and still been in .NET. So to be
no,
fair, you could. There's people who do it, and F sharp. You could be in F sharp the entire time, not write a line of C sharp or C++. Technically, you can write C++, manage C++.
J Sharp.
Yeah, you could have written Fox Pro. No, what is this? What? Iron Python, man. You could have been an Iron Python this whole time.
I don't think I don't think those products were out in. I mean, VB.net was out in 2001,
Yeah,
but
and it's still
no,
used. A lot
it
of
was.
HR systems actually use VB for some reason. I don't
It's
know.
not new projects. They was it you I was talking to where it's supported, but there is
Yeah,
declared that
yeah,
there's no feature, no new features.
yeah. But there's a lot of legacy code out there written in VB still. I mean,
Uh,
it was a popular language. I mean, but yeah, I know what you mean. So, but yeah, but that's the thing is they might not know, but they've got the ins to places. So they're not they're just literally looking like, do you tick my boxes, yes or no? And then they go, okay, great. Based on your experience, we're gonna get you an interview here. And they just because, you know, and if you otherwise pass a smell test for them. But that's what they do is they're trying to get their whole job. These recruiting firms is to try to get you placed because that's how they make their money. They want you in the job and there and working for however long it needs to work to for them to get their 20% of your first year's salary or whatever that they'll take home by placing you. That's how they work. So it's they're incentivized to try to get you in that places. Um, yeah, which is why I actually have a lot of luck getting into places through the one that I had on Thursday. I don't like dealing with them very much because it's like they'll call you beforehand. Okay, here's all the information about the interview. You're gonna go. Do you have any questions for me? It's like no. Get done. Call me when you're done. Okay. How'd it go? Went well. Then think we're going down to the next step. Great, great. Here's some more information about your next interview. Probably. It's like all right, thank you. Um,
do you think paying for ChatGPT is worth it?
for GPT-4, maybe. I don't know. I haven't used it.
I'm
Possibly. If
trying to
it,
figure out how much of that I could leverage to do my job.
you should before you do that though, maybe try Copilot. Um, in and try that out because Copilot uses
Copilot's
GPT.
in Visual Studio.
Yeah, there's a Visual Studio extension. You literally just like type what you want and it writes it.
Hold up for a second.
I'm like pretty sure I've seen a demo of. I know it's in Visual Studio Code for sure, but Visual Studio I believe too. Um, GitHub
You see,
Copilot for Visual Studio. Yeah.
it's talking about Willis. All right. So what you said? Add an extension.
Well, you
Oh,
have to like. I think you might have to have a Copilot like whatever. Um, just go to
isn't there a trial period?
yeah. It looks like there's a free trial period.
How you spell
The extension
Copilot?
has pretty low pretty low
Which one am I clicking? The GitHub or the Visual Studio?
I would go to GitHub. They'll give you the official ones. Oh wait, extension Visual Studio extension for GitHub Copilot preview. GitHub Copilot. Maybe it's the second one. What's the second one? It's by Microsoft versus that one's got better votes, but when did it come out? I don't know, man. It's one of those probably. A lot less things, but hold on.
Release
GitHub.
on April of or end of April of 2023.
Maybe that's the old one. GitHub Copilot, your AI pair programmer. We need to find where it gets put
This one was
in.
released on the GitHub one was released in 2022.
Packages, actions, packages, code spaces, code review, search, discussions, Copilot for business. Where the heck is the? So it's $10 for an individual or $20 for a business.
A month.
A month. It looks like, or you can do $100 a year for individual. Oh, here we go. Visual Studio. Yeah, it's the other one, the 2.5 star one that is good. People must have had like a bad experience with it and like friggin' just come on here and rail on it. But oh, no support for ARM64 or the Mac Silicon running in parallels. So there's some people who just don't like it, but yeah, it's the GitHub Copilot with the 417,000 installs. But I don't know, maybe it doesn't work well with F sharp, who knows?
Hmm.
Something for you to look into anyways.
Okay.
If you're thinking about using ChatGPT for code generation, you might want to consider Copilot instead, because it's like it'll be in your IDs. And even if you had to like, if you're like, I hate the one in Visual Studio, but I'll just open this code up in Visual Studio, code, and then run it through that one or something, and then just compile it with Visual Studio or write manual stuff in Visual Studio. Well, that might be fine too. Or
Generate
you
a
switch to
function that
JetBrains.
retrieves DB items by priority. Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh no.
Or you could just use it to generate, basically to translate data or something. But yeah, maybe do a free trial of GPT-4. So, but I think I've got to hit the bio break here, so I'm gonna take off, I think.
All right.
So,
It's been real.
yep.
Thanks.
When do you start your contract?
It's not until like the 24th.
Okay, just
So
got
I
a
was
little
thinking
time.
about squeezing in the vacation, but like I'm running low on funds, man. And plus, to me, it's not safe to make any big purchases or transactions until like I collected two paychecks, and I feel like things are somewhat stable at whatever new job that I'm at.
Gotcha. All right. Well,
All right.
we'll talk to you next week.
See ya. Bye.
Yep. Bye.
Whoever's viewing, see you later. Peace.